Hey everybody, welcome back to Brain Power. This is episode 13. I apologize for the brief hiatus I was on with the show. There was a ton of stuff going on, but all great stuff with regard to building in the DAI space and the Morpheus network ecosystem. Today, joining me is Will Bowen from IamAI. Will has been in the AI space and the crypto space for well over a decade now. He worked on some projects in the really early days. He won a hackathon, actually hosted by David Johnston back in 2015. We'll talk about that during the show. Very excited to have Will join me. We've been talking about doing this episode for quite some time. So let's dive into it. Without further ado, here is Will Bowen.
I'm trying to free your mind, but I can only show you the door. You're the one that has to walk through it, through it, through it.
You're listening to Brain Power.
All right, awesome. We're back. So I have not done a Brain Power episode for a little while, actually. It's been a couple weeks. Tons and tons of other things I've been working on. And so unfortunately, Brain Power took a short hiatus, but we're back. We're going to be publishing every week again now. Joining me today, I have Will. I always pronounce this wrong. Bowen. Correct?
That's correct.
Like bound without the D. Okay, Will Bowen.
Yes.
Thank you for joining Brain Power today. We've talked about doing this one.
Here.
Awesome, thank you. And we've talked about doing this one for a while, so I'm really excited to have you on and to dive into your background in crypto and AI, which I understand to be pretty robust in terms of, you've been around since kind of the beginning, and then all of the stuff that you're working on. So I'll let you kind of take it away as an intro to. I always say to people, who the heck are you? Who's Will Bowen?
Yeah, well, I'm really OG, especially these days. About a decade now, I've been doing AI and blockchain. So from the beginning, 2014, I was mining Bitcoin. And then I got the idea to do some funky stuff with AI at the time. It's not the same as it is today. It's quite different. But AI at the time, I got the idea to integrate it into a blockchain. I was doing a lot of AI stuff before that. And then I was doing, a lot of crypto stuff. So it made a lot of sense for me to combine the two and kind of use the basic idea for me at the time was I was trying to figure out ways to get people to use AI because people didn't really get it. And there was all this science fiction fear of it, and that's still around, but it was kind of like, way in the future, and people didn't believe it or something. So I was trying to just figure out ways that I could help incentivize people to actually use AI, right, themselves, like individuals, not just people up in in programmers or people in colleges and whatnot and universities, out to the public, like everyday people. And so I hit on the crypto, and I was like, hey, maybe I can, maybe the money is the incentive, and maybe that's the way to do it, to get it out to people. So I made Nereal, and actually won the 2015 Bitcoin Texas Bitcoin hackathon that David Johnston actually put up, which is...
Oh, that's awesome. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Morpheus is very familiar with David. Yeah, anyone listening to this knows David. Yeah,
yeah, and so in 2015, I headed down to Austin and went to the hackathon there with my project and what I was doing.
What was that project? Can you dive into that a little bit?
So what I did literally was I took Peercoin, Peercoin was the very first proof of stake coin. It was the very, very first one, and it was a fork of Bitcoin. And they converted it over to, if people aren't familiar with it, and they converted it over to proof of stake from proof of work. And they made it work that way. But I forked that, and I put custom transactions in it. And this was before Ethereum, right? Mm-hmm. I put custom transactions in it that would pay people for accuracy of predictions. So it was about predicting the future time series data, like stocks or crypto or what. I mean, there wasn't really crypto at the time much, but
yeah, that was pre-ICOs. That was still, for people listening, that was like 3 years before, or probably 2 years before the first ICOs really started with things like MakerDAO and everything else.
Exactly. And David was actually trying to do that. And that was kind of like the thing that I was winning. So I won and got up on stage, and he saw what I was doing there, he kind of had, he knew at the time, understood the power of it, and so he put me up on the stage as the winner. But mainly, he wanted to, the idea was that I was basically supposed to do an ICO before ICOs were made, and so I never figured that part out because I'm not really a good money person, right? I understand tech really well, and I'm a visionary. I can see the future, obviously, because I was back that far. I understood what was going on back then.
But the economics or like the money piece was always the piece, I guess, that you didn't have like a traditional background in. Which, yeah, it tends to be one or the other, I feel like, in crypto. I was kind of on the other side of the coin. I was more like classically trained in finance and converted into technology. Will, I'm going to pause really quick because we do have a little bit of a mic issue from your end. It's like giving me cackles coming through. As we were just saying, yeah, people, from my experience in crypto, tend to have one of two backgrounds, either like a traditional finance background, then they get interested in technology, or a traditional technology background, and then they start looking into, finance, economics, and all these other things. And it's like these special unicorn characters, like the Davids of the world, who kind of really have a grasp of both. And then that's when, obviously, really, really crazy stuff happens. No, that's an awesome background, Will. It's super cool that you've been in the space for that long. I want to jump into talking a little bit about your subnet now, which I believe is called IamAI. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Can you jump into what you're doing with IamAI, kind of any where you are currently, what the future plans are, and dive into that a little bit?
Yeah, totally. I jumped forward, 10 years after all that stuff.
Do you want to fill the gap really quick? Let's do that really quick. What happened between 2015 and IamAI, where I'm assuming you were still in the space?
It's okay. I mean, it's cool. Like a lot of stuff happened, right? So, if you jump,
only 10 years.
Forward,
I just fast forwarded a decade. So
yeah, which is great. So I right now I'm like, I've been deep in AI. I mean, I started in AI. I've just been deep in AI. Like I'm like the full AI stack. I've been doing it 24/7 now for the last 5 years or 6 years. Like that's all I've been doing for 6 years. Is the deep transformer stack. I worked with TensorFlow. I worked in in PyTorch, and now I'm working in C++. So with Llama CPP. So and GGML it's called. So I'm really deep in the stack. So I've got I've tech stack. So I've got all the skills as far as like understanding like what the thing really is, like the LLMs, basically the stuff that you guys are doing, and the stuff that is really the future and where we're going with all this stuff. So anyways, I'm deep in all this stuff. I got caught up with all the data scientists and reading all the papers and doing all the things. And now what I realized though in the whole thing, and what was missing, was the separation between the end user and the data scientist. So basically everything is done in Python. So most everything is done in Python today, like with AI. So what it does, because of that, and because it's real programmer tech heavy, people, in order to make a product, you generally have to put it behind a website. So okay. Where it's remote. So that has intrinsic centralization problems. So that paradigm is centralized. It's very centralized. Because it's the whole cloud thing. It's like you have these few people that know the tech or have control of the tech, and then you have the rest of the world that is there that comes to the White Tower to get their thing, and that's really anti decentralization. I mean it's like the opposite side, and I think that's what we are all trying to do here in this decentralized AI ecosystem. Is we're all trying to fight against that and to make something better, right? That works better for individuals, and it's all about the individual. And so what I saw was that there's a missing particular part of the whole picture, which is specifically the training. It's the training itself that is the thing that no one really generally has access to. And still today they don't. So there's a lot of and people don't even really understand what it is even. Right?
Yeah, I just recently actually read a book specifically on training of large language models to try to understand what is the actual process for training it. And it might be worth diving into a little bit on the show. 'Cause I would imagine a lot of people listening don't have a huge understanding of it. And I mean, my basic
totally.
understanding of it, and I'd love to be corrected because I know you understand this better than I do, is basically like at their core, these start with thousands, if not millions, of documents that they're first reading. And they're starting as basically algorithms that can try to predict what comes next in a document. And then only with continuous human input are they chopped down to basically looking like predictive in terms of real language as opposed to predictive in terms of just producing similar documents to what it's been trained on or like what it's studied. Is that generally correct?
So probably the way I describe it. So this is the way I describe it, and it kind of fits into what you're saying a little bit. So if you imagine a brain that's totally blank. There's not even any, like humans, we have this structures that our genetics give us, right? That let's like a pre-setup or whatever. Imagine something that's not even that. It's literally just random. Like it's completely random, right? And so it's nothing comes out that you could possibly imagine. Like it's nothing. It's not even goo goo gaga. It's like it's just noise, right? That comes out of an AI that's brand new before it's been trained. So that's the reality of what it is. And then it tries to start to predict things, right? And you modify it a little bit by little bit. And you do that billions, if not trillions of times. Trillions. It's not like a human where, you go in and you like take a course of study for, and you read, I don't know how many books. We train the models with more text than any human could possibly read in like 20 lifetimes. Mm-hmm. And that's reading constantly.
Yeah. Well, and then the fine-tuning piece, right, is basically like almost like an A/B test on like this is correct, that's not correct, this is correct, that's not correct. Because isn't there, from what I was reading, there's a human element at some point of actually like correcting what it's telling you and doing different like temperature signatures so it knows how similar to what you're asking it should pull from. Like basically how creative it should try to be in its response.
So, yeah. So if you have this, you're giving it trillions and trillions of text, right? Mm-hmm. It finds a place in this like insanely multidimensional space that's insane. It finds a little spot that's like kind of close to the human spot. In other words, it's like the universe. Here's a huge universe. It's starting in some random place in the universe, and it's finding the Earth.
Right.
So that's what it's doing when it's training on like trillions of things. So it gets down to Earth, right? So here we are at Earth. So now we're at Earth, but there's lots of things on Earth. There's lots of different things on Earth, and so fine tuning is when you have your Earth, you're on Earth now, and now you're finding like which person you're finding Bowen, and then you want Bowen to you want it to be able to talk like Bowen does. So you find the place on Earth where it does that once you've found Earth in the first place.
Yeah,
that's really what it is.
One thing I thought was interesting too is in the book I was going into how to help people prompt, so how to help them think how an AI thinks. And it was talking about how it thinks in terms of tokens. But tokens do not translate in this. And when I say tokens, I mean AI tokens, not crypto tokens.
Yeah.
And like the way that it thinks is not the same way that we write. So for example, it was saying that if you have like the word done, for example, DONE, and if you type it in all lowercase, that might be picked up as a singular token by a model. And so it'll find, like you said, it'll find Earth relative to that token. But if you type in capital D, lowercase o, capital N, lowercase, it doesn't necessarily read that as done. It might read it as two tokens. And so it has to like learn to understand like the intent of what you're saying, but it doesn't think the same way that we do. And so even like small tricks like that might pull like a completely different thing out of its thought process than us just reading it like, oh, it's done. It's just the font or the capitalization is inconsistent. And so all that stuff is so interesting.
Totally. Yeah. Well, it's not, what you're saying is it's not actually really Earth. It's not finding Earth. It's finding some similar thing to Earth. It's not the Earth we know exactly, right? It's very
Right.
close.
Yeah, and it can trick us basically into feeling like it is, you know, and that's what's so interesting. And I'm sure as these tools get even better, that just continues to trick, you know, us as people. Because like you said, it's training on every bit of information ever published, basically. Like no human could conceivably consume and remember the amount of information it has. And so, yeah, all those tips and tricks are really cool. So with IamAI, the subnet specifically, what are you doing with that subnet? Like, what is it that you're working on?
Yeah. So what I saw is that there wasn't really a way for end users, not developers, to really have control. I mean, the whole thing about Morpheus and the whole thing that decentralized AI is about having your own personal AIs. So it's about having your own AI that's yours. If it's, I mean, there's two ways to do that. You can either have some sort of a decentralized system set up like you guys do, where you use someone else's compute for your AI, or you can use your own compute that you have. So what I'm trying to do is help streamline the process of doing your own compute and having your own AI that you can. The key important thing that I'm doing is making it so that the end user can actually train their own model that's unique to them, right? And then they can then offer that to other people, run it on their own machine locally, or if they can do it with the decentralized compute. But it's their own model, so they can then get benefit by giving it other people access to it.
Yeah, so
And
theoretically,
charging for it.
if you have your own model fine-tuned to like if I had one specifically fine-tuned, like just my own experiences and expertise or whatever it is, I then could host it on the Morpheus compute router, and so someone else could tap into it if they wanted to. And basically, I would be locally hosting it, but they would have the ability to leverage it into their model, into their agent, whatever it is. And so it's almost like an NFT of your own intelligence, right? Like you're like capturing your own experience and intelligence in a bubble and then saying like, I can either keep it private or monetize it or do whatever, which for certain people, I don't think mine will be extremely valuable, but someone who's maybe got really heavy technical skills will be hugely valuable, I'm sure. So that's awesome. Okay. Interesting.
Well, yeah, well, I think that that's another thing I want to do too, which is that's another thing that's I think unique about my project, is what you just said. So your assumption is that these things are only made, and these agents are only made for like productive things, like work things, like I got to make some money, or I got to do this stuff, or I got to get my work done, right? I don't think I think we're missing a huge boat here. I think we're missing a big thing, which is the character of the AI models themselves and the character of humans and the artistic side. I mean, I watched the whole Stable Diffusion and the whole image creation art stuff. I was an integral part of that, and it seems like all the focus is shifted over to these LLMs and like all these metrics that people try to. I beat all the metrics, right?
Sure.
And who knows what those metrics are? What if it's not fun? If you can't have fun in life, you're like, what the heck? I'm getting old.
Yeah. Well, that's an interesting perspective, because you're right. I mean, I'm certainly guilty of this. Like when I think of AI tools, my mind automatically jumps to like productivity and business application. It doesn't jump to just like enjoyment and entertainment, which is probably more telling about me than the technology. But yeah, that totally makes sense. So do you think that like capturing your experiences and intelligence in this way will fundamentally transform relationships and friendships? Because you could theoretically, so people have weird parasocial relationships with people on the internet already, right? I've seen this. It happens a lot with musicians. There's musicians who have like fans that are crazed and they have to talk them down, basically. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. There's this band called Bad Omens. Have you ever heard of them before? They came to mind. Yeah, so they came to mind for me because they got really popular about 2 or 3 years ago, and their lead singer is this like young, super handsome guy, and he had to come out and make public statements because so many fans were becoming heavily parasocial online. But could you capture his intelligence or his essence in this way? You could effectively be like friends with that person, kind of. You know what I mean? Like you could interact with a representation of that person that you would not necessarily be able to differentiate between the real flesh or not.
Yeah. So that's exactly what I'm getting at here. I mean, that is it. So the important part with its centralized view is that the ownership of that is in the hands of the creator themselves.
Right. Well, and you took this the last we spoke. So for people listening to the show, you and I had a conversation a couple months ago, and you took this, and I'd love to hear if you're still looking into this, to taking it to the like absolute extreme of wearing technology yourself to actually capture everything, like the sounds, the noises, the sights, and getting to this point where you're basically, you know, those Google Maps cars that like drive around and capture all the data. You're basically that, and then offering that data as experience to be used for other people if they want to benefit from it. And presumably it would be potentially, well, it wouldn't have to be, but it could be used as a revenue generating thing for the person who's hosting it. Or it could just be like, maybe I'm an artist and I want to donate my experience to art, you know, or whatever it is.
Well, yeah, and you know, art is a big money mover. I mean, NFTs are a proof of that, you know, like.
Sure. I know I need to get beyond the finance. It's so hard because my background was on Wall Street. I mean, my background was working for hedge funds, and then it was co-starting a mortgage brokerage, which I still do outside of crypto. And so it's always been like from a financial picture. And I really need to like broaden my horizons on this and not bring everything back to that, because you're right. I mean, there's even just like, think about it from a historical context. I mean, the amount of like if I could see moments in history through the eyes of the person experiencing the thing. I mean, imagine, or like Olympic athletes, you have Olympic athletes wearing some type of technology where you're capturing that experience of winning the gold medal. And now I can put on my, you know, VR, AR thing and like experience that, or feel what they felt, hear what they heard. I mean, it's really transformative to a lot of stuff.
I think it's the key thing. There's this movie back in the 80s or 90s that was called Brainstorm.
Okay, I haven't seen that one.
It had Christopher Walken in it. It was probably one of the most transformative movies that ever for me in my life. You know, basically they were recording onto like CD tape people's experiences, and then people could play them back on a device. Basically, exactly what you're talking about. And
I'm just jotting this down. I just found it, so I was jotting it down so I can watch it later.
I mean, it's kind of silly, but it's an old school thing. But
yeah, but the ideas still remain, right? I mean, it's just like, what's funny is it's people then. What year did this come out? It's 1983. You have people pondering stuff that is possible today. At least some version of it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that really is exciting.
Yeah. Yeah, so I want to be a part of that, and that, you know, as I go out, it's my life goal. I want to be a part of that. Whether I help with the tech, you know, help people to have like privacy and sovereignty over what they experience and those kinds of things. So it's not like just a way for you know, the oligarchies or whatever to control us, you know, another way to control the rest of us, you know.
Well, the only way to accomplish what you're describing is for the individual to own that data and control that data. I mean, that's the huge thing that I always harp on with people is like, right now, the way that it's set up, you are paying a subscription to a mega company to steal your data. You are actually paying them to capture your intelligence and then use it, you know, and like, it's crazy. And like, I'm guilty of it. I use some of these tools because the fact of the matter is they're good. And the irony is the people building DAI in a lot of cases are using these tools to build the thing that's going to replace these tools, hopefully. Totally. But you got to do it to some degree. I mean, you don't have, you know, billions of dollars in training across a decentralized community of hackers basically building out these ecosystems, but they're moving, and they're moving quickly. And I think what we're going to start seeing is like deeper organization across these different DAI ecosystems to ship these products that'll hopefully become just the norm, you know, and at some point someone will get it right, and hopefully everyone else is on board to build it together.
Yeah, well, and hopefully I can be a part of that, even if, you know, it's not, for me, it's not particularly about my brand or something. So everything I do is open source. I'm not even really doing my own chain or anything like that. So, I love what David, and the community here has been doing and made happen, because I can come in and add technology to the ecosystem without having to create a company and do all those things. So.
Morpheus as a project is completely agnostic to use case. I mean, it's the protocol itself, and this is why we often, like, I'll have people ask me basically like, oh, do you work for Morpheus? I'm like, well, only in the sense that I choose to, only in the sense that I'm showing up and working on the project. We don't have a team. There's no like permission. There's no any of that. Yeah. It's, hey, do you want to do this thing? And do other people who support this project support that thing? Okay, then like, let's do it. And that was for me what was so enticing, because you can only build the technology we're talking about with that type of mindset, because ultimately it's either the individual has access to the tools and their own intelligence, or someone else does. And there's kind of like no in between, unfortunately.
That's right. So I'm giving everything I have away for free, the knowledge and the intelligence, the understanding that I have. And so, I'm down there, I'm trying to make this thing happen. It's unique in the sense that it's going to be giving people the potential to train their own models without being a programmer, without knowing Python, without, basically it's just they can buy a gaming machine, any gaming machine out there with a good GPU, a couple $1,000, download the software, just like they would download Adobe Photoshop, right? And run that. And so they just download the software, and it doesn't connect to the cloud. It doesn't connect to the cloud or anything like that. And it just runs, right? So, I want to integrate the Morpheus, what is it called?
Compute router.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's the proxy. I want to be able to integrate that and have that work too. So I want to help you guys, who's ever working on that. When I say you guys, I mean who's.
I know what you mean. Yeah, just like the community. Yeah.
I want to help make that like super simple for people to download, so that end users can do it. Like anybody really, because I see all these people who want to do stuff, and they have to use online, things, and they search around for a bunch of stuff, and whatever, but they don't have like a thing they can download, and it's now on their computer. They 100% own it. Everything's local. Everything's they have on their own everything they own. They own everything.
Yeah, well, I think the way to do it, and while I'm going, Will, if you could do the mic again. Well, I think the way to do it is if you have your local download for IamAI, and I can download it to my local device, set up my model the way I want to, and then I can decide to register my model as an available model on the compute ecosystem. That then allows me to basically, potentially, if I want to, either for free or for money, offer my model to the marketplace. And then I could either host the compute locally, or another compute provider could pick up the model and host it on their device. Because if it's a really high demand model, like if you're expecting, and it's a large model that's in high demand, you're going to need industrial grade inference to support that, especially if there's many users, which could happen. You could register your model as an agent on the agent registry, and then have somebody else tap into it and be hosted by like a commercial compute provider, and then used on the other end by somebody who wants to consume the agent. So like the model could be you as an agent is what I'm trying to say, which then somebody can roll into a like multi-agent protocol, agent to agent protocol, whatever it is. Yeah, I mean, that's amazing. And that's like the type of tool that I think will take Morpheus from where it is now to somewhere where you have these handful of like killer apps that people are using. I think that's kind of one of the things that Morpheus needs to do next, is find what are those killer apps, similar to Ethereum going live. Well, prior to Uniswap, prior to MakerDAO, prior to a lot of these things, there were not yet these like killer apps for consumers. And that's where I'm sure you remember, like in 2020, we saw DeFi summer, where all of a sudden there's DEX after DEX after DEX popping up. And now you have consumer use cases. And then, of course, it's like completely snowballed from there. We have things like Polymarket now and lending platforms. And that, like, we're at this early stage still within Morpheus where we need to find those killer apps basically that become consumer products. But it's happening. I mean, people are working on it. It's just a matter of time and getting it right. So Will, before we get out of here, any like last messaging or anything you want to leave to the DAI community at large?
I'm looking for a little bit of support. Most of the support I have is coming from myself and people that I know personally to support it. But I don't need much. I mean, I'm just one guy, in a basement apartment, and it'd be awesome to be able to do this full time. So I'm still working like half time on some other stuff. Just staking on my builder project would be amazing. So
awesome.
That's pretty much it.
And a reminder to everyone listening, so staking to builder subnets, you still own those underlying More tokens. So staking to a builder subnet is effectively you taking your More tokens, showing support to people building, and them earning emissions in More tokens based off of your stake, which is then allowing them to have liquidity, access to compute if they stake it to the compute contract, so that they have runway to build their thing. And so definitely, if you're listening to this, get in touch with Will, check out his builder subnet, consider staking to it. He's an example of somebody who I'm looking with Brainpower. I'm looking to support people who are building products and building products that fit within like the the larger vision of, I was going to say grander vision of Morpheus and the ecosystem. I certainly do not speak for Morpheus. I guess I do speak for Brainpower technically, but really, it's just I want to see and help projects that are looking to actually build DAI get support so that they can build it, because these are really important products. These are really important just like principles that we must have aligned looking into the future, because anyone who's listened to this before or me talking to any other podcast knows I have really strong feelings about what a centralized intelligence future looks like. And it's extremely bleak. And you'll see, I mean, I have 1984 is sitting right there on my bookshelf for a reason. So anyway, awesome. Will, thank you for jumping on. I really appreciate it. I will have the link to your subnet in the description, and I wish you all the best of luck, and let's stay in touch as you build this thing.
Awesome. Thank you, Bowen. You're amazing.
Oh,
thank you.
Thanks. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm trying to free your mind, but I can only show you the door. You're the one that has to walk through it.
You're listening to Brainpower.